Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Nick from Australia. Welcome to the Melbourne Storm 2020 season review. Hope everyone's doing well on this Friday night. It is currently November 27. Hope everyone is doing well. Welcome to the Melbourne Storm 2020 season review, which we're going to get into in a sec. But before I get into it, I just want to thank everyone who has subscribed to my channel. We're currently at 952 subscribers. We are 48 subscribers away from reaching 1,000 subscribers. So if you can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, or share the video around to your mum, your dad, your sister, your brother, your cousin, uncle, nan, auntie, pop, whoever it may be. If you can share the video around to all the people you know and get them to subscribe, that will be much appreciated. I promise you, they will not regret it. Anyway, let's get into the Melbourne Storm season review now. They had a great season, the Melbourne Storm, obviously winning the grand final once again. Premiers again, Melbourne. A pretty good season, probably a perfect season. When you win the premiership, it's normally a perfect season. Although they had some pretty tough challenges, the Melbourne Storm, considering, they couldn't play in Melbourne. They only played one game in Melbourne. 2 games in Melbourne, I think it was, for the entire season. So, they had to relocate up at the Sunshine Coast and, a lot of people talk about the Warriors sacrifices and how good it was absolutely fantastic. But Melbourne also had some pretty big sacrifices. They weren't even in their own beds for a long time. They were sleeping at the Sunshine Coast and they were playing all their games up there. So, Melbourne, a lot of fantastic sacrifices. And for them to win the premiership, playing pretty much all their home games at the Sunshine Coast is a fantastic effort. And, as much as everyone is so sick and tired of the Melbourne Storm, they're just a fantastic run organisation, the best coach in the game in Craig Bellamy, the best player of all time, the GOAT, Cameron Smith. Will he play on? Will he retire? No one knows what is going on with Cameron Smith. I'm not trying to suck off the Melbourne Storm here, but once again, another fantastic season for them. Now let's go through their season. Obviously, they only a 20-round season this year, and they started off, they took on the Manly Seagulls, one of their rivals at Brookie, on a Sunday afternoon game there. And Melbourne got off to a good win, 18 points to 4. Then Manly only kicked 2 penalty goals, so it was a good start to the season for Melbourne. And then the second game, they took on the Cronulla Sharks, and they literally just held on to win that game. I think it was due to a late penalty goal in that one, so a bit lucky to win that one. So they were 2-0 to start the year, Melbourne. And obviously, the COVID lockdown, there was no footy for 6 weeks, and the coronavirus, and there was no football. So when the season restarted, they took on the Canberra Raiders, and my God, they were disappointing here. This was probably Melbourne's most disappointing game of the season, losing to the Raiders, 22 points to 6, getting outplayed by George Williams in the Canberra side. So that was a bit of a disappointment for Melbourne. But they bounced back the next week very well against South Sydney, winning 22 points to 8. Pretty good result there. Then they had a fairly good win at Central Coast Stadium over the Newcastle Knights, 26 points to 12. A fairly good win there for the Storm. Then they got beat on the Friday night game against the Panthers, which ended up being the grand final. They were beaten by Penrith, 21 points to 14. I remember the game well. It was a Friday night game in Penrith. It was a pretty good game of football, but Melbourne went down in that one. And then they bounced back against the Warriors in a big way. It was pretty much the Anzac game, which obviously wasn't on Anzac Day this year because of the COVID-19, but they smashed the Warriors 50 points to 6. That's a pretty good response. That's a bit of a theme of Melbourne. They get beat one week and then they absolutely annihilate the team they play the next week. So that's a pretty good thing for Melbourne. Then they had one of the best games of the season against the Sydney Roosters, winning 27 points to 25. That was one of the best games of the season, in my opinion. So that was a great win for Melbourne. That game was at Suncorp Stadium. That was a fantastic game of football there. Then they took on the Raiders. They wanted a bit of payback from losing to them in round 3. They bounced back against Canberra here. They went 20 points to 14. I remember the game well. It was a Saturday night game. Wasn't the best game of football because there was a lot of penalties and a lot of errors, but it's a win that Melbourne will take, and they did that. Then they absolutely annihilated the Gold Coast Titans, 42 points to 6. Too good for the Gold Coast. Then they went up to Suncorp Stadium, and they absolutely destroyed Brisbane. Melbourne haven't lost to Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium since 2009, round 2. So a fantastic record for Melbourne, and they went up to Brisbane, absolutely destroyed them. Let's face it, Brisbane were pretty diabolical this year, so it was a pretty easy win for Melbourne. So they've won 2 in a row here. They've won 5 in a row at this point. They're absolutely flying, Melbourne. Then they took on the Newcastle Knights and they won that game 26 points to 16 on the Sunday afternoon game there up at Sunshine Coast. Then they destroyed Canterbury 41 points to 10. Then they destroyed the Roosters 24 points to 0. And then the Storm's winning streak came to an end when they lost a couple of players. They rested a lot of players for this game against Parramatta, where they got beat 14 points to 0. And then they bounced back the next week again with another big win, 30 points to 6 over the Manly Seagulls. Too good for them in that one. Then they literally held on against South Sydney, winning that one 22 points to 16. I remember that game against South. I think it was a Friday night game at ANZ Stadium. It was a really good game of football, and Melbourne ended up getting the win, but good game of footy there between those two sides. And then Melbourne took on the Cowboys up at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. They were too good for the Cowboys, winning that one 36 points to 20. And then the last couple of rounds, they destroyed the West Tigers 50 points to 22. And in the last round, they rested pretty much their whole team, and they got beat by the Dragons 30 points to 22. And then in the finals, they hosted the qualifying final against Parramatta Eels, and they defeated them up at Suncorp Stadium 36 points to 24. Then in the preliminary final, which I went to, go and check the video, go and check the vlog out already. I was there, where Melbourne absolutely annihilated Canberra 30 points to 10, and they won the grand final at ANZ Stadium against the Penrith Panthers 26 points to 20. Now, looking at this season, I thought it was a phenomenal season from the Melbourne Storm, and the thing is too, right, to win all those games outside of Melbourne, to be based at the Sunshine Coast for a very long time, to still win so many games and go on the road and win and show that consistency. A lot of praise needs to go down to Craig Bellamy and his coaching staff. I know a lot of people hate Melbourne out there and everyone's sick of them. And don't get me wrong, I'm sick of Melbourne at the top every year as well. But you don't have to like Melbourne. You can even hate them if you want. But you got to respect the club. They are a consistent top 4 team. They are so good at what they do. They just do everything right, and I think some clubs need to try and copy what Melbourne do. Well, maybe not copy, but try and do things that are similar to what Melbourne do, because they are the ultimate consistent side. They just get it right year in, year out, and I think it'll be a long time until we see Melbourne go bad. Even if they lose Cameron Smith, they've still got Harry Grant there, who's got a big future ahead of him. They've got Brandon Smith, the Wombat, the block of cheese. What a player. They've got so much quality there still, even without Cameron Smith. It's just a fantastic run club, and they just get it right year in, year out. Now, having a look at their season, their best win and their worst win. I mean, they had a lot of big wins, so I'd like to say they had... I don't want to go with the big high-scoring wins. I want to say their best win was the game against the Roosters at Suncorp Stadium, where they won 27-25, where it went to Golden Point, and they got a penalty goal late because Jake Freeman was offside. But I'd say the game against the Roosters, where they won 27-25, was probably their best win. Their worst win, there's a couple of them you could say, but I'd say the game against Canberra, where they were outplayed in Melbourne, 22 points to 6. That was a really disappointing game, where they lost to the Raiders. They were outplayed. So I'd say round 3 against Canberra was their worst performance of the season, and their best win was against the Roosters. Now, having a look at some of their players this year, I thought some of their great players. I thought Cameron Smith was absolutely outstanding once again. I thought Tino was brilliant. Cameron Munster was terrific. Jerome Hughes was brilliant. Ryan Pappenhausen was great. Ado Carr was solid. Justin Olam has got a huge future ahead of him. He's a great player. Who else is there? Nelson Solomona was great. Chris Lewis, the young school teacher, thought he played well. Brandon Smith. A couple of players from Melbourne who I thought were a bit quiet. I thought Jesse Bromwich and Kenny Bromwich were a little bit quiet this year. Felice Kafusi wasn't that great. Siliasi Vunivalu's a grub. I thought he was a bit average. Brenko Lee wasn't too bad. You can't really single out a bad player for Melbourne. There isn't many of them, really. But also, another player who I thought was great was Christian Welsh. I thought he was absolutely extraordinary this year. I thought he was terrific. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting Dale Finucane was good. Kamikamitha was okay when he got a run. You know, Cooper Johns didn't get much of a run, but he's not a bad young player coming through. He's got to learn it on his kicking game a little bit. He's not a bad player. If Cooper Johns can kick the ball better, I think he'll get better as a player. But it's really hard to say who that best player was because there's so many of them. But I'll give you my top 3 players from Melbourne, right? I'll go Cameron Munster, Cameron Smith, and Ryan Pappenhausen, probably the top 3 for Melbourne this year. Justin Olam and Christian Welsh probably go very close as well. And if I had to say their worst player for Melbourne, not particularly their worst player, but a player who I thought was quiet, and I would say that was Jesse Bromwich. I don't think Jesse Bromwich was anywhere near at his best this year. I'd say he's probably their most quiet player. But overall, a fantastic season for the Melbourne Storm. I thought they did absolutely brilliant this year. If I had to give their season a rating out of 10, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10. They won the premiership. They were based at the Sunshine Coast. They weren't even playing in Melbourne. I know all the families came up and they had family with them, but it's not the same, you know. It's like if I left Lismore and I was based in Sydney for 6 months with my family, but I was still living here, but I wasn't here, you know. It's not the same. It's a very different feeling. But, you know, they did really well this year, Melbourne. They deserved to win the premiership. And overall, a 10 out of 10 season for mine. You could argue a 9 out of 10, but, you know, when you win the premiership, when you're based outside of your hometown, when you've had to make sacrifices to bring your family all the way up the Sunshine Coast, quarantine for 14 days, it's not easy, I'll tell you right now. It's not easy. But, you know, Melbourne, they're the premiers once again, and now every club is coming for them in 2021. But the question I have now is, with the Melbourne Storm, the real question is, will Cameron Smith, will he play on at the Melbourne Storm in 2021? I believe that he will stay at the Melbourne Storm and play one more year. So I reckon 2021 will be Cameron Smith's last year in the NRL. And I think him and Bellamy, that they will both retire at the same time. It makes sense. It does not make any sense to me at all for Cameron Smith to go to the Gold Coast or go to Brisbane for a year or two. It just does not make sense. But to be fair, Cameron Smith has got nothing to prove. He should honestly retire right now. He's going to be an immortal. He's already an icon of rugby league. He's the greatest hooker I've ever seen. He's the greatest player of all time, in my opinion. Whether you like him or you hate him. I know rugby league history hates Melbourne, so I understand that. But, you know, with Melbourne, you know, they're just a quality outfit. They deserve all the praise they get. But now, will Cameron Smith play on? I'm going to say he plays on in Melbourne in 2021. It just doesn't make sense for him to go to Brisbane or the Gold Coast. He's got nothing else to prove. Why go to Brisbane and Gold Coast? What's the point in that? There's absolutely no point in it. But I think he'll play on one more year in Melbourne, and I think he should play on because he's not slowing down. Why not? But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up my Melbourne Storm review for 2020. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you guys go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's currently 9:45 p.m. The video should be up by 10 o'clock, so hope you enjoy it, guys. I'm out of here. Have a fantastic Friday night, guys, and I will see you guys probably tomorrow afternoon for the Penrith Panthers 2020 season review. Anyway, guys, I'm out of here. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.